All right, we are live on Facebook today. Welcome, Mike Olson and Nick Campos. How have y'all been? We hadn't talked in quite some time.
Been a while.
And well, Roy, it's good to be back.
Yeah, Nick's been. Nick said he's been busy. I texted him. He's been running around with family members, doing all kinds of stuff. I've been out for about 2 weeks with COVID, so hadn't felt like doing nothing. So, Mike, what have you got going? You got your hand still in the cast? No cast today.
No cast. No, I'm good.
So no bocce ball cast, huh?
No bocce ball cast. No.
So, but anyway, so we're waiting to see if everybody hops on here. We'll give it just a minute here. All right, we are live right there. I see that. All right, we got people hopping in. So, Mike, I'll let you kick off. Let's hear some safety stuff from the safety director.
Oh, safety stuff. Well, it's still hot out there. Key points: stay well hydrated, stay well rested. Watch your speed, watch your following distances. We've got a lot of holiday travelers out there, summertime travelers, pulling boats and RVs, not used to doing the professional thing like you guys. So watch your merging, just general awareness. Be careful.
Well, and we're talking about safety. I've been seeing a lot of stuff of late, a lot of accidents up in Washington. What's going on up there?
Washington. Probably just inattention, just trying to rush, moving too fast.
Well, I see what the company message is about. Every day we see a big wreck somewhere up there that's going on. I was wondering if maybe they're having road construction or...
Yeah, we haven't had any big wrecks. It's just small incidences. And, as Nick will tell you, and you've been out there, you have small incidences, it's going to lead to a big one. So got to put a cap on it.
Oh, I wasn't talking about company-wise. I was just talking about on the highway in general, because there's been one like every single day they're posting, especially around Ridgefield. I didn't know if there was something going on up there that maybe somebody watching could find out about or whatever. I didn't know if there was construction or whatever.
Well, there's a lot of different things. There's a car fire on Sunday, just north around Kalama. There seems to be something going on quite regularly. It's when it's hot, pre-trip inspections, make sure the vehicle's prepared. This was a newer Jeep Wrangler that caught fire, burnt to the ground out there in the brush. So it was torched. So I have to be careful on those things when it gets this hot. We had a long time ago, this was many years ago, but we had a slack adjuster fire in the state of California related to a slack adjuster getting too tight and burnt a truck down. We had a brake drum that caught fire as well and set a truck on fire back in the day. So both in California under extreme heat, but we're seeing it up here. We're seeing steady, consistent heat. And then what happens is at night, you go to sleep, it cools down into the 60s, high 50s, things like that. Then during the day, it heats up to 100 degrees or 90, and that moisture cools it, and it gets hot again. And that's when you see the metal warping and opportunities for friction, and that friction causes the fire. So it is something to be on the lookout for. And there have been more little fires like that in the state of Washington, and accidents just as a result of people just being a little careless in the sun, pushing too fast, more cars being out. You have more people going out to go play around in their inner tube or with their boat or their RV. They're staying in fast lanes when they shouldn't be. They're where they shouldn't be. They're making lane changes that they shouldn't be, and then that's when following distance becomes exceptionally important. There's not an accident that's not avoidable typically when you're talking good, safe following distances. And I would say to anybody listening to this and anybody everything following distance is always the key to accident avoidance.
Well, I'm going to say something in, especially because I have people that tune in that don't drive trucks. I'm going to say something, and this is a public service announcement as a driver. This isn't safety guy. This isn't executive. This is a driver. If you're in a car during the summer, we're talking about the hot, especially we're seeing 109, 110 degrees. if you are passing a semi truck, accelerate and get around them. If one of the tire blows on there, you have nowhere to go. Get on past them. We don't want to hurt you. We don't want to be involved in an accident with you. If you run side by side and a tire blows out, you have nowhere to go. I want to say that over and over and over. Get on around a truck, get past them. We don't have control over tire blowouts, things like that with the weight and the heat. It happens, and we do not want y'all to be in a situation. So if you're driving a car beside a truck, get on around us. We're not going to super accelerate, whatever. And we're not going to swerve over at you. Just get on around us and get gone.
There's objects on the road too that can cause tire blowout that are completely separate of tire maintenance and tire care, pre-trip inspections. So stuff can happen. It's always good advice to not be on the side of a semi truck ever. I give that advice to my wife, to all my kids, everybody I know that I've ever talked to about driving. Is you accelerate. You're allowed 15 over to pass something. You just do it and get around them and get past if that's what you're going to do. Otherwise, stay behind until a time is set where you can. One safety item that I'd like to just talk about here before we move on to our topics is summer. We're right in kind of peak summer right now. Of course, the heat, and we've been talking about that for quite some time. But as the nights start to get a little bit longer, pay attention to your sleep cycles. So
Yes.
as things change and darkness stays a little longer, it takes the sun's up a little bit later, it goes down a little bit earlier. It changes some of that stuff for when a person's working swing shift or working early mornings, and can cause a person to feel different and get tired. If your run is from 6 p.m. to 4 a.m., well, all of a sudden it gets dark at 8 o'clock instead of 10 o'clock. It is a meaningful difference, and nothing you have to do besides just pay attention to it and acknowledge it for what it is. Think about it. When those times occur and you feeling tired or groggy, take the minute and get the rest, whether it be a nap or a longer period of time. There's no piece of freight that's so important that would need tired driving. So,
and stay hydrated.
Hydration is key.
Very important.
Oh, well, I just read something this week, and actually last week while we were home when I was sick and didn't have anything better to do, and never heard this. But if you drink 1 cup of coffee, drink 1 glass of water to stay hydrated. I did not know that was a thing, but hey, I learned something new about staying hydrated. So I'm horrible about drinking water, but during the summer I've been doing a lot of it. So now as we're getting out of the safety stuff, we're going to kind of do a short meeting today with Nick, because he's got to get home, and Mike too. We have heard Ab5 for the last month and a half. It's been beat into the bushes. It's been beat into the head. I don't know a whole lot about it. It doesn't affect me. I'm not an owner-operator. So I want to kick it off with you, Nick, telling us what it is. I know y'all have been working with the legal team to see what your responsibilities are and what you can shed light onto it as a company executive and to the owner-operators out there.
Yeah, so AB5 is a California designation of a bill, and and whether you be a company driver, an owner operator, own authority carrier, small carrier, whatever it is, it matters, and it should matter to you, because the thing is as a truck driver, there's so few things that you have choice over on this world. Most of the choice is taken away from you. You're forced to do certain things. Some of them very well intended and for the greater good. Some of them just to add further challenges to the way we do the business that we do to service a needy nation when it comes to getting goods and services. But what owner operators have traditionally been able to do within the trucking industry is join on to trucking companies as a owner operator under that carrier's authority. They bring their truck, they operate under the other company's authority to save costs of setup, to save insurance costs. There's a variety of different reasons that they do it. It's all around the principle of a consortium. The consortium allows them to bulk buy things, including fuel, that allows them to run their business more efficiently. So they get the benefit of running 25, 30, 100 trucks with only having their one truck. So It allows an individual owner-operator to keep their costs down while keeping their independence. They can choose whether they want to run 1 day a week, 3 days a week, 7 days a week. The only thing requisite is that they operate within compliance with federal regulations. But outside of that, they get their freedom. What AB5 does is it looks to classify an owner-operator as what would be deemed an employee based on a 3-pronged test. And that 3-pronged test is very difficult to meet. It's so difficult to meet, and this is the standpoint of any bad law, is that it requires a bunch of exemptions, such as beauty parlors. A typical beauty parlor, they'll have 5 chairs in there, and each person will rent a chair. Well, that doesn't meet the prongs of the AB5 test. Each one of those should be an employee hairdresser. But my guess is some of the California legislature members go to hairstylists, and they were able to get that exempted. So they were able to get a great deal of certain industries exempted from this, but not truck drivers. And truck drivers were not the initial intent of this. The intent was to get the Uber drivers of the world, the small gig workers, and try to get them to a spot that could be unionized. And second was the port drivers. But in doing so, they put a one-size-fit type of government overreach to do that. This is important because not that it's necessarily a problem for our company, but it is an important thing that truck drivers are given choice. Somebody might say, well, people take advantage of truck drivers, which is true. There are companies out there that offer lease to lose programs. Many up here that in the Northwest, plenty throughout the country, that they bring a driver in fresh out of school or fresh in to lease them a company truck. The company takes the depreciation on the truck. They give you a nice little lease payment. You lease it until you lose, and then they take the truck back and they sell it, or they give it to the next sucker to lease it for a period of time on the premise that, hey, you're going to be an owner operator and you're going to make big checks. The real owner operating of the world is a driver goes out and acquires their own truck, and they work out a financing agreement on that truck so that they can have ownership of that vehicle. They utilize the trailers of a larger carrier that has trailers, and then as they continue to go, as the market dictates or as their truck life dictates, they buy or sell new trucks, and they grow their fleet accordingly. Maybe they get to 4 or 5 owner-operator trucks, and then eventually they decide to get their own authority and go out on their own. But this is the way that it's worked for many carriers in the U.S. that are quite large today. Is starting from just that concept. It's a perfect breeding ground for them. When this rule like AB5 comes into place, it stops that growth, that capability for a person to start with training wheels, if you will, with bumper lanes on their bowling alley to make sure that they can get off the ground and do so responsibly. What it forces them to do is go completely all out on their own right from the start. And when they go out on their own from the start, they face a lot of the challenges that most small businesses face, which is cash flow constraints on the onset, and those cash flow constraints from waiting to collect for 30 days while having to pay their 30 to 60 days while having to pay their costs within 15 days. It really tightens them down, and then their insurance costs spiking because they don't have a consortium environment to buy that down, and their fuel being more expensive lead them to have some very real struggles. So a situation like we're in currently, where the market for spot market rates is dropping while fuel stayed up for quite a while, ends up having a very detrimental effect on a lot of those small carriers who are forced to go get their own authority and operate in that kind of a structure. So it's a bad thing for freedom for truck drivers, and anytime it's a bad thing for freedom for truck drivers, I'm against it. Am I against lease to lose programs as it relates to truck drivers? I absolutely am. I think a lot of drivers who are well-intentioned get themselves into those things, and they get permanent life issues as a result of it, that financial issues that they carry with them for quite some time.
You're talking about that lease to lose thing. I've been involved in 2 of them. One of them I don't feel horribly bad about. They were pretty straightforward, pretty straight up, and I'm not gonna name names. And then the other one is, if you're not making it, then their thing is, well, you're idling too much. Well, you're driving over 55 too much. You're doing this. No, you're not. Anyway, we're not going to get into it. We all know who it is. We don't need to talk about it. Won't do it again. I have no desire to do that.
Very few winners in that program.
Yeah.
Right.
The benefit isn't owning the truck. That's when eventually you own the thing, and you get to spend, let's say you're going to buy a truck and you're going to own it for 6-7 years and really baby it and really take care of it. Well, if you got a 4-year payment, you spend 4 years, the next 2 years you make payments to yourself. So that way, when it comes time to buy your new truck, you have your trade value plus the 2 years of payments you've made to yourself. And now you've gained way towards putting more cash down on a newer truck. And after doing that 2 or 3 cycles, eventually you just own your truck outright. And that's the true mark of owner operating.
Yeah. Well, in the one, they did 90 days. You could work 90 days. They didn't take a truck payment for 90 days. If it isn't something that you wanted to continue to do, no harm, no loss. Have a nice day. Go on somewhere else. They were very straight up, very straightforward. It was great. Now, the other one, I was an idiot. So we'll just say that and walked into it. So I just don't have the desire. I don't have the self-discipline to own a truck, and I'm not going to. I don't want to. We'll just leave it at that.
It's not for everybody, but the point I'll make to it is that you should always have a choice, and it should be a fair choice, and a state shouldn't arbitrarily, because the unions say so, to create legislation that reduces your ability as a licensed and trained professional to do your job in the way in which you choose to do your job. And that's what California has done in this situation. It's a reduction of freedoms to the very people that even 1 year ago they were saying, oh, these essential truck drivers, we love our truck drivers. Truck drivers are so amazing. And then, represented, and we just never say thank you to them enough. Thank you so much, truck drivers. There's all this stuff. And then, then it's all of a sudden, well, hey, the union has a good lobby and they want this legislation and this is important. So all of a sudden now we're dealing with a bill that is designed by somebody who's not a truck driver for truck drivers that don't really want it.
All right. So what have you had I know when we talked before, you said we had 3 people that fall into that. We also, everybody's talking about, they passed this law, but they don't have it in authority at this moment. They don't have an enforcement authority because I don't think they expected it to get past the Supreme Court, to be honest with you. So where is everything lies to fall in compliance with that? What does a person that's going to California have to do in that situation? That's the big question I know everybody's asking, and nobody's came up with an answer for that.
So it's not about going to California. That's the issue. It's the nexus of where the issue would be brought to. So all of our guys are in compliance, either from the states they operate in. They may go to California, but it's not nearly to the amount that they go to other places. So it's all about the nexus of where the enforcement would be. So if you have a guy and he operates as an owner-operator for your company on your authority and it's only within the state of California, the nexus will be in California, and it will be something that is a compliance issue. If you have one that's in Colorado or New Mexico or Texas and they come into California intermittently, it's not as big of an issue. Where the true attention is right now is on drayage providers. The Teamsters want to unionize drayage providers. That's where their focus is. They've been open about it and honest. That's what they want. And union port drivers are their own specific type of animal. You have a company port driver who may pull 2 loads a day versus a owner operator who may pull 4. There's some level of efficiency that comes from not being paid hourly by being paid piecemeal workflow rate. It's not like the owner operator is getting negatively impacted in that. They're making a ton of money. They're pushing 4 loads because they want to make the most money possible, and by doing more loads they make more money. They do quite well when they do that. So it's an everybody wins type of scenario. And I'd argue that it's good for the port because you get less individual unique trucks in there, and good for the the economy and even one could even say the environment. There's a lot to be said for it, but that's really where the focus is on this. As for enforcement, I think the enforcement is going to be employee driven or owner operator driven. If they choose to sue companies, then California is open for business to receive those complaints and represent them against truck drivers or trucking companies. But if there's not, then it likely won't go far. But it's a threat that these companies are faced with that they have to take real precaution as it relates to that. We have, and you have to insulate against it. And it will have a negative impact on California. It may not be immediate. One thing that trucking companies are really good at is adapting to change and additional requirements because over the years they've always happened. So we find a way to mold, adapt, and to face those issues and become a new and better a new company that takes in those kind of situations. The problem is when these challenges keep coming and keep coming and keep coming, and you keep having to clear higher hurdles after higher hurdle after higher hurdle, eventually you do miss. And one of these days they're going to put legislation in place, and this one might be it, where it limits the amount of capacity within a given area, such as California. And that over time will impact whether or not drivers choose to become truck drivers within the state of California. It's what we run into with autonomous trucks. People say, hey, you're going to be all autonomous by a certain period of time. What does that make a young driver? You're 21 years old and all you hear about is autonomous truck driving. What are you making a career decision to become a truck driver for? You have to be thinking about that, right? You and I know that autonomous truck driving is probably a lot further out than anybody. If anybody was truly asked with a gun to their head when they think autonomous trucks and they have the right answer, I think they're going to put it out more into the future than somebody would if they didn't have that and it was in their financial interest to say it's going to be sooner than later. So there's going to be a lot of truck drivers that don't enter the marketplace because of those fears, when quite frankly, if you're a truck driver 21 years old right now, you could probably work your whole career driving truck and never be threatened by an autonomous truck. I think it's a fair statement to make, and I'll see it play out in my lifetime, and my guess is 40 years from now we'll still be seeing people drive trucks.
Yeah. Well, I know you only wanted to do 15 minutes and we're well over that already because there's so much to talk about, but I think that you're right. And we just saw one of the trucks hit a guardrail, one of the autonomous trucks, and then they quickly blamed it on the person in the truck didn't do their procedure correctly to keep it from hitting the guardrail. But then it goes back to, okay, so a person wrote the program that did it wrong to begin with. So it blamed the driver, of course, because it was the driver sitting in the seat's fault. But it was a software problem by somebody that wrote the code for the software. So make up your mind. But we're already got autonomous truck drivers drivers in the seat of an autonomous truck being blamed for it having a wreck. So there you go. It's always blame the driver. So,
yeah, you tell me the day I can walk on an airplane and not see two pilots up in that cockpit and have everybody not freak out that's in the back getting ready to be, taking 30,000 feet in the air. That'll be the day we truly know that they're willing to consider putting 80,000 pounds on a highway without anybody behind it. But an empty windshield. I don't see it. And quite frankly, when it comes time to looking at black ice or frost and those kind of things, and whether or not to go over the hill or not, I will always trust a truck driver. You guys care about it. It's your life, it's your livelihood, it's your responsibility. God bless the American truck driver. They did take that stuff, and truck drivers throughout the world, but take that very seriously. And the amount of miles that are cleared on a daily basis supporting this nation is beyond. It's a miracle. It's amazing. So,
and we had Ed on here before. We talked about it. Not only did this bill just pass that has created issues with the ports, but now you got the railroads that said they're going to cut their freight coming into California. So what's California going to do now that you've shut off your ports? Now you're shutting off your railroad. Now what are you going to do? Just saying.
They still have a robust population, and with a robust population leads to commerce. It's still in and of itself, it's a country worth of economy. So they will get served. But the The problem for the state of California is they will see inflation. They will see cost creep across their network. The goods that they buy will be impacted by the decisions they make. It will cost more to get things done. It will cost more to serve them, and they will pay for it. And quite frankly, there is such thing as being taxed for legislation, because sometimes the legislation you pass leads to those increases and you pay for them.
Well, we just got a friend of mine said that lives in California says we're screwed. So there you go. But, and I'm going to say something. We had a comment from a YouTube watcher, Redworm. I don't know what it is. Do you believe in God? I'm going to tell you this right now. We don't discuss religion on this channel, this podcast. Everybody's beliefs are their own, and we're not going to get into it. So, but thank you for asking. So, and hey, Scoop Martin, and how you doing? Enjoy the stationary bike. So, but we're going to end it now because Nick wants to get home, even though it's 5 o'clock in Portland, and he's got a crappy drive ahead of him. So,
go meet a contractor.
All right. So I have a question that I have been asked repeatedly. I will ask you off air because it doesn't need to be discussed in air. So hang tight while we end it. So, all right.
Appreciate it. Have a great night.
Thanks.
All right,